Flames swallowed the curing barn, 14,000 pounds of burley tobacco turning to ash. Andrew Reeves stood in the cold dirt, the orange glow carving 50 years of legacy into his face.
I did the right thing. That horrible smoke won't poison our neighborhood anymore.
3 days earlier, the war between the tobacco farm and the wellness-obsessed HOA was already burning.
You'd think the county would do something about that carcinogen stench drifting over our homes.
Another letter. This one calls the curing process a public health hazard and demands immediate action. Granddad cured tobacco in that barn for 40 years. Now, it's a crime to earn a living.
If the county won't act, maybe we need to take matters into our own hands. That farmer thinks he can poison our air. He's about to find out how wrong he is.
The morning after the fire, only the charred ledger and a single question remained. Who lit the match, and why? 3 days before the fire, Christine Holloway's war of words blazed hotter than the flames to come.
We cannot allow this farmer to continue poisoning our families. I've filed a formal complaint with the county health department.
3 pages of accusations, complete with unsourced health claims. They're trying to strangle my farm.
Share this and let the county know we won't tolerate these carcinogens in our backyards.
I've been drying tobacco in that barn since before Christine moved here. It's legal, regulated, and none of her business.
That weird old man on the corner, he just stares at my house. So creepy.
Across the fence line, Walter Dunn, a quiet widower with wire-rimmed glasses, watched the harassment unfold and waited.
Mrs. Holloway, I've farmed here for decades. The curing process is harmless and inspected by the state.
Your tradition is giving my grandchildren asthma. If the county won't stop you, I'll find another way.
Andrew watched her walk away, the weight of a multi-generational farm pressing on his shoulders. The real fire hadn't been lit yet. The afternoon before the fire, Christine Holloway pulled into a roadside fireworks stand. She paid cash, no questions asked.
I'll take these, the biggest ones you have. I have a pest problem.
That night, wine flowed liberally on Christine's patio. Her friends fanned her resentment.
That farmer is a menace. The carcinogen stench drifts right into my bedroom window. If the county won't protect us, we have to protect ourselves. That barn is a health hazard.
She pushed back from the table, retrieved one of the candles, and strode toward the property line. The lighter sparked, and the fuse sizzled. The Roman candle threw dancing shadows across her face.
This is for everyone who can't breathe.
She hurled the flaming tube over the fence. It arced through the dark, trailing red sparks. The Roman candle landed on the curing barn's dry shingles. Within seconds, flame licked the eaves. The dry tobacco leaves fed the flames. Within 20 minutes, the entire barn was an inferno, visible for miles.
Dear God, no. No.
He dialed 911, voice cracking as the first crack of collapsing rafters split the night. The volunteer fire department arrived in 12 minutes. By then, the roof had caved in. A firefighter shook his head. Nothing could survive that heat. Andrew sifted through the wreckage at dawn. His boot kicked a melted plastic casing. Roman candle. This was arson.
Someone burned my barn on purpose. Christine? No, even she wouldn't.
Then he saw it, the corner of his grandfather's leather ledger, smoke-stained but intact, buried under a fallen beam.
Granddad's curing records. Every pound, every date, every tax payment. Why did he tie this to the Treasury?
Andrew clutched the charred book. The full weight of what was lost would soon be counted in federal dollars. The next morning, 2 unmarked SUVs rolled up the gravel lane. ATF windbreakers stepped out, and Andrew's stomach dropped.
Mr. Reeves, the barn on your property was a federally bonded warehouse. Burning it is a federal crime.
Bonded warehouse. Granddad's obscene record-keeping. This is about the federal excise tax on stored tobacco.
The inventory in that barn was bonded under Title 26. You understand what that means, Mr. Reeves?
Andrew opened the ledger, tracing the entries he'd ignored for years. Every leaf had been collateral for excise taxes owed to the Treasury. Across the fence line, Walter Dunn retreated to his desk and rewound the previous night's security footage.
Magenta cardigan, pearl necklace. That's the woman from the HOA meetings, throwing a lit firework. She called me a weird old man. Now I've got her face, full frame, committing a federal crime.
He saved the clip and slid the drive into his pocket. For now, he would wait. Back at the barn, Agent Morrison's team cordoned off the wreckage. The investigation was no longer about arson. It was about federal excise tax fraud. Agent Morrison spread a map across the hood of his SUV. The bonded zone covered the entire curing barn.
The excise tax on 14,000 pounds of cured burley, plus storage duty, comes to $2.1 million. Mr. Reeves?
Andrew felt the number hit his chest like a physical blow. He'd lost a crop, but the Treasury had lost its collateral.
Granddad signed a bond so he could delay paying tax until sale. Now the government says I owe for destroyed property.
That makes this an act of federal excise tax evasion by destruction. Whoever did this faces up to 10 years.
Meanwhile, Christine Holloway's phone buzzed at her kitchen counter. A neighbor had seen the ATF vans.
Federal agents for a barn fire. That's ridiculous. It was just an old shed.
But her voice climbed an octave. She'd thrown a Roman candle, and the police weren't the ones investigating.
They can't trace it to me. There is no evidence. I was careful.
She was wrong about one thing. The evidence was already sitting in Walter Dunn's pocket, waiting for the right moment. Andrew spent that evening beside his grandfather's old desk, piecing together the bond's history from brown documents.
A bond filed in 1972, renewed every year. Each leaf of tobacco was collateral for a tax the Treasury could claim at any time.
A sepia photograph showed his grandfather shaking hands with a Treasury official, the barn sign reading Bonded Warehouse Number 7. The bond wasn't just a tax deferral. It made the inventory federal property. Destroying it was like burning a pile of Treasury checks.
Granddad thought ahead. He protected the farm from market swings, but he never imagined someone would torch it.
Across town, Christine's phone rang. It was her closest friend, voice cold.
I am sorry, but I can't be seen with you right now. The ATF is asking questions about that night.
The news had spread. Christine was no longer the wellness leader. She was a person of interest in a federal case.
They're turning on me. After everything I did for them.
For the first time, Christine Holloway sat alone with the weight of what she'd done, and the ATF hadn't even knocked yet. Christine Holloway hired Marcus Webb, a criminal defense attorney known for making federal charges disappear.
I need this investigated as harassment. There's no evidence, and I won't be railroaded by some farmer.
That same afternoon, Andrew Reeves walked the fence line and knocked on Walter Dunn's door.
Andrew, I've been meaning to show you something. Come on in.
Walter led him to a small office. On the monitor, a grainy nighttime video with a timestamp.
See that? A woman in a magenta cardigan throws a lit Roman candle over your fence.
That's Christine. You've had this since the fire?
She's called me the weird old man at HOA meetings for 2 years. Now, I am the one with the evidence.
Walter handed him a USB drive. Justice, it turned out, lived just across the property line. Christine, sitting in her attorney's office, still believed she was untouchable. The USB in Andrew's pocket said otherwise. Andrew took the USB straight to Agent Morrison's field office, a trailer parked near the barn ruins.
We've got her. Full face. Federal crime. I'll have a warrant signed within the hour.
The warrant came through. By dawn, 2 ATF vehicles turned onto Christine Holloway's cul-de-sac.
You can't be serious. This is harassment. I've done nothing wrong.
Mrs. Holloway, we have video of you throwing a lit firework onto the Reeves property.
He held up a tablet. The grainy footage played. Her face, her cardigan, her raised arm.
That weird old man had a camera. How did I miss it?
The handcuffs clicked around her wrists. Federal agents read her rights on the front lawn as neighbors watched.
It was a prank. I didn't know about any bond. You can't do this.
Christine Holloway was driven away in an unmarked sedan, the sound of her sobs mixing with the hum of the engine. Christine Holloway was formally charged the next morning with arson and federal excise tax evasion.
This can't be happening. Can't you get the charges dropped?
Her attorney, Marcus Webb, had a reputation for making problems vanish, but this evidence was ironclad. Meanwhile, Andrew Reeves sat in the hallway of the federal building, the charred ledger in his lap, preparing his victim statement.
Granddad's farm. 50 years. All gone because someone hated the smell.
When the magistrate read the bond amount aloud, $2.1 million, Christine's knees buckled. The discovery phase revealed the source of the tape: Walter Dunn, a retired county sheriff. Not a weird old man. A lawman.
She called me a weird old man for 2 years. Now she'll call me in court.
Christine's attorney floated a plea deal, but the U.S. Attorney's Office rejected it. The destruction of bonded inventory carried a 10-year maximum. The trial date was set. For the first time, Christine Holloway faced the real possibility of federal prison. The sentencing hearing was a funeral for the farm. 60 years of legacy reduced to ash and a federal court docket. The judge's voice was stern. The bond protects federal revenue. You destroyed $2.1 million in secured inventory.
My granddad built that bond. Now, it's the reason she's going away.
Walter Dunn testified calmly, his footage, the final nail. 2 years of insults, repaid with 1 USB drive. Her attorney argued ignorance of the bond. A moment of passion. The judge was unmoved. The sentence fell. 10 years in federal prison. Restitution of $2.1 million. Andrew squeezed the charred ledger. A single tear traced the smoke stains. The bailiff cuffed Christine. The magenta cardigan was gone, replaced by an orange jumpsuit. She glanced back once, but Andrew's eyes stayed on the ledger. Outside, newspaper cameras flashed. Christine Holloway, HOA president, federal inmate. Months later, the blackened foundation was cleared. Andrew stood where the fire had raged, a new blueprint in his hand.
Granddad would want it rebuilt. The bond will protect us again.
The insurance payout covered the reconstruction. Walter Dunn rallied neighbors to help haul lumber. New tobacco seedlings arrived from a farmer who understood loss. Andrew knelt and planted the first row.
She never figured we'd end up friends. That's the real justice.
You gave my granddad's farm a second chance. I won't forget that.
That evening, Andrew signed a new bond document. The ink was still wet, the number 73 stamped at the top. The Treasury approved the new warehousing bond, continuing the legacy his grandfather started in 1972. The first saplings rose from the soil. The smell of curing leaves would return. For the first time since the fire, Andrew allowed himself a quiet smile. The farm would survive. As the new barn rose, a government sedan pulled up. Treasury officer Lang stepped out, holding a familiar file.
Mr. Reeves, we've finalized the bond assessment. The Treasury will not seek repayment from you.
I don't understand. I thought I owed $2.1 million.
The bond protects the farmer, too. Arson voids your liability. The federal government absorbs the loss.
Granddad's bond wasn't a trap. It was a shield. He protected the farm even from beyond.
Andrew walked to the charred ledger resting on a sawhorse and traced his grandfather's handwriting beside the excise calculations. A faded note read, "Bond means the leaf is sacred. Uncle Sam shares the risk." That evening, Andrew met Walter at the fence. "She never knew," Andrew said. "The bond she tried to destroy is what saves us."
That's the beauty of doing things right. It outlasts the ones who try to tear it down.
The first curing barn would be completed by fall. The bond would be filed again, and the smoke that Christine hated would rise once more. The smoke would rise again, sweet and sharp, as it had for generations. No HOA complaint would stop it now.
Funny thing about that bond, it scared her off. but it's the reason you are still here.
Granddad knew. The bond makes the leaf sacred. You can't burn that away.
The rebuilt barn cast a long shadow across the field, but this time it was a shadow of endurance, not loss. Andrew and Walter walked the fence line one last time, their footsteps tracing the boundary between what was and what would be. The retired sheriff and the tobacco farmer paused at the corner post. No words were needed. The farm had won. Inside Andrew's study, the charred ledger lay open beside the new bond certificate. 2 pieces of paper, 50 years apart, telling the same story. Outside, the first leaves of the new crop caught the breeze, and somewhere a mockingbird began to sing. And if you stood very still at dusk, you could almost smell the curing leaves, a smell the HOA would never understand and never, ever stop. The sun dipped below the tree line, and for the first time in a long while, Andrew Reeves let the screen door slam behind him. The next morning, Andrew Reeves sat at his desk. The charred ledger rested beside a blank sheet of paper.
She took 50 years of work, but holding on to that won't rebuild the barn.
He began to write, not an apology, but a quiet acknowledgement that the farm would continue, with or without her rancor. His pen moved slowly. Christine, I hope you find peace. The smoke you hated will rise again, but maybe it won't choke you anymore. He folded the paper and walked to the mailbox. The choice cost him nothing, yet everything.
You sent her a letter? That's a better man than I'd be.
Hate doesn't cure tobacco. She's got 10 years to think. That's enough.
The mailbox clanged shut. The farm was safe. The bond was renewed. And Andrew Reeves had made the hardest decision of all, to let the anger go. That evening, the sunset painted the new barn in shades of gold and green, and for the first time in years, the air around the farm smelled only of possibility. A week later, a letter arrived with a federal prison stamp. Andrew turned it over, recognizing the handwriting. You think you won? It read. This isn't over. I'll appeal, and when I am out, I'll make sure your farm never recovers.
After everything, she still blames me. The anger is right there. A lit match.
Let me guess. She's not asking for forgiveness.
She wants to burn it all down again. And part of me wants to write back and tell her exactly what I think.
That's what she wants. A fight. The real choice is whether you let her rob you of the peace you just found.
Andrew walked alone to the barn site, the letter flapping in his hand. The new timbers smelled of pine and legacy. He could burn it, write back, ignore it. Each choice carved a different future. The fire had taught him one truth. Some fires you can't control, but you can choose what you build from the ashes. He folded the letter, placed it in his pocket, and didn't look back. The choice, for now, was silence. 2 weeks later, a thicker envelope arrived with a federal seal. Christine Holloway had filed a formal appeal.
She's claiming the bond was improperly maintained, that you are the one who committed fraud.
Mr. Reeves, the appeal hearing is next month. They'll try to paint you as the aggressor.
I could settle with her for a reduced sentence, or fight, and risk everything.
She's trying to make you choose between her punishment and your peace.
That night, Andrew sat in the barn with the charred ledger. His grandfather's note was barely legible in the flashlight beam.
Uncle Sam shares the risk. Did that mean I should share mercy too?
He didn't sleep that night. The choice between justice and mercy circled his mind like smoke from the old fire. Morning of the appeal hearing, the courthouse steps gleamed under a gray sky. Andrew felt the weight of the suit he'd worn for her sentencing. Inside that courtroom, in a few hours, he would have to decide, and once he spoke, there would be no turning back. The courtroom fell silent as Andrew Reeves took the stand, the charred ledger pressed against his chest.
He's going to destroy me all over again.
Your Honor, my grandfather bonded every leaf, so the Treasury would share the risk. She didn't just burn my barn, she burned a federal trust.
The judge leaned forward. And what do you seek, Mr. Reeves?
I don't seek revenge. But the bond was a promise between my family and the United States. That promise has to mean something.
The judge glanced at the retired sheriff in the gallery. The evidence is overwhelming. The bond was valid. The appeal is denied.
No. The bond was ancient. Nobody told me.
The bailiff moved forward, but the judge raised a hand. Ignorance of the law is no excuse, Mrs. Holloway. The bond is why you are here. Christine Holloway was led away for the last time. Her 10-year sentence stood, anchored by a piece of paper she never understood. Andrew closed the ledger. The smoke had cleared. The bond had held. Outside the courthouse, Walter Dunn waited with his hands in his pockets. He didn't need to say a word.
You did right by the leaf. She'll have 10 years to figure that out.
Mr. Reeves, the Treasury wants to thank you. Your adherence to the bond program sets a precedent.
The letter, framed later that week, hung in the new curing barn beside the charred ledger. News crews gathered at the farm gate, but Andrew only gave one statement.
My grandfather knew that if the government is your partner, destruction has consequences. The bond isn't paperwork, it's a promise.
Evening fell. Walter and Andrew sat on the porch. The first batch of new leaves had been hung to cure that morning. The sweet, sharp smell drifted across the fence line, unashamed. Inside the study, the framed Treasury letter sat on the desk. The charred ledger lay beneath it, open to the last page, in faded ink. Beside the final entry, a new line had been added: bond honored, farm saved, legacy intact. In a federal prison cell, Christine Holloway unfolded a newspaper clipping her lawyer had sent. The Treasury upheld a 50-year-old tobacco bond, sending a HOA arsonist to prison. Legal experts call it a landmark ruling.
A landmark ruling. That's what they'll remember me for.
That same morning, Andrew Reeves stood before the State Agriculture Board.
The bond was never about taxes. It was about trust between the farmer and the country. That trust is why I am still here.
The board unveiled a plaque in recognition of Andrew Reeves, defender of the federal tobacco bond.
Funny how a piece of paper can be tougher than fireworks.
The tobacco fields stretched gold and green, the rebuilt barn standing against the sky like a promise kept. In her cell, Christine stared at the crumpled clipping. The smoke she hated had become the legacy she could never erase. And in Andrew's study, the charred ledger rested beside the new bond, two pieces of a story that no fire could destroy. The evening breeze carried the sweet, sharp scent of curing leaves across the porch where Andrew and Walter sat.
40 years of your granddad's records, and it all came down to one bond.
He always said the government was his partner. I never understood until now.
The charred ledger lay open beside them, the new handwritten line visible even in the fading light. The rebuilt barn caught the last rays of sun, its new timbers golden against the darkening sky.
She tried to burn a piece of paper. But a bond isn't just paper, it's a trust between a farmer and his country.
And that trust put an arsonist in federal prison. Poetic.
Inside the study, the new bond certificate hung beside the Treasury letter, with the charred ledger resting peacefully below. For a long moment, nothing stirred but the wind through the tobacco rows. The smoke would rise again tomorrow, and every day after, as it had for generations, a promise that could not be burned. Dawn broke over the farm, and Andrew Reeves stood alone on the porch, a cup of coffee warming his hands.
Granddad's bond. It was never about the money. It was about the land, the leaf, the trust.
Morning, Andrew. Thought I'd find you out here.
Couldn't stay inside. The new barn needs its first check of the day.
They walked the familiar path toward the curing barn, the earth still soft from the night's cool.
She thought she could burn a bond. But a bond isn't flammable. It's just a promise.
In the study, the charred ledger lay open to the final page, the new line gleaming in the morning light. Outside, the tobacco fields stretched wide, the new barn standing proudly at the edge of the rows. The first plume of curing smoke rose from the barn, sweet and sharp, drifting toward the HOA homes. Christine Holloway had burned the barn, but forgotten the bond. And the bond, like the farm, would outlast her.